Hello everybody, this is Joseph Propati and I'm the creator and designer of Dungeon Hack the Dice game, and I'm going to be putting together a series of instructional videos covering the new version of Dungeon Hack the Dice game. So these videos, they'll be covering the mechanics, different actions that are involved in the game. This video in particular will be covering a full turn of the game, everything that's involved in it, and they're just going to be set up so they'll help you go along with the rule book. Sometimes the rule book isn't as detailed, and it's constantly evolving and I'm working on it, but I'm hoping that these videos will answer a lot of questions that maybe the rule book doesn't. So the first video I put out was the setup, and so we have the game set up, ready to play. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to do a full turn playthrough, and I'll probably do another one that covers different aspects of a turn, where one you might have a door, one will play without a door, things that can happen within the turn that might not happen in this first turn, so such as like an event or whatever. So that's what I want to do in this one. I'm going to play through just an entire turn, explain what a turn is, rounds that are in a turn, and all the actions that can be performed within that turn. So let's go ahead and get started. A little bit of upfront information. Again, this is the setup for playing Dungeon Hack the Dice game. Once you're set up and you're ready to play, every part of the game is based on a turn, and that turn is based on a dungeon tile. So basically, when you look at your layout, your dungeon layout card, and you see all these squares, these are dungeon tiles. So we always start at our E for the entrance, and we have all these nomenclatures for CR, JR, JL, CR, and those are referenced to the dungeon tiles themselves. So you have R for room, CR for quarter room, C for corridor, JC for junction center, JL for junction left, and JR for junction right. Those are the 6 main dungeon tiles within the game. And a turn is always based on playing through a tile. So you'll know, you could literally count up your tiles, these squares, and know that's how many turns are going to happen in the game if you complete the whole dungeon. So remember, each dungeon tile is going to consist of a single turn. And that's what we're going to go through now. We're going to start our very first turn, and that's what this playthrough will cover. So let's go ahead and we'll get started, and we'll start our turn 1 based on the dungeon layout card that we picked. So you'll see on here we start from the entrance and we go into a CR, which is a quarter room. So all you do for the start of the turn is come over to your dungeon tile piles, there's stacks, take the top one because they've all been shuffled, pick this, and see what the tile has on its logo. If the tile has a door, then you're going to be playing a door all by itself, meaning your party has to get through that door to get into whatever is encountered on the other side of the door. So you won't know what's in this dungeon room, quarter room, until you've completed or resolved the door. Now, if the tile had just the logo like this, there'll be no door, and it's basically an entrance that you'll go through, and then you'll see what's on the other side. But in this case, since this quarter room has a door, we're going to deal with the door first. You won't flip this tile over until after the door is resolved. Okay? So, like any dungeon tile, we set this up in front of the previous tile, which in this case is the entrance tile, and we take our red party marker and just set it on top of the tile. So we have the beginning of turn 1. We know that we're going to be doing a quarter room, and it's a door. Now, this turn is going to take a while. This could take 30 minutes an hour because I'm going to take so much time to explain all the little details. So don't think that each turn will take that long. Once you get used to the game rules and the play, you'll be able to go through turns really quick. You'll be able to resolve monster attacks, traps, puzzles, events. You'll get better at going through this real quick. So turns will actually go pretty quick. So in this one though, but I'm going to go into a lot of detail. And so don't get discouraged on how long this turn takes, okay? There's going to be a lot of information. So first thing we do is draw a door card, okay? Since we have a door. Flip it over and let's look at the information based on this door. So we see that it's a door, a puzzle door. You'll always have a title. Here's your image of what the type of door it is. On the upper right corner, this is your rounds marker. Because again, a turn is based on a number of rounds. So as you play through a turn, you'll have round upon round which occur for taking actions, trying to resolve this door. And this number 3, that's how many rounds it's going to take before this door resolves itself. You need to resolve the door within these 3 rounds, or there's an effect that will happen based on either resolving or not resolving the door. And I'll get that right after I explain the elements of the card. So we have our rounds, then we have what actions are needed to resolve the door. So you'll see the black dice are secondary dice. The white dice are main character dice. Okay? So this door needs secondary character dice to resolve. And it says needs 2 different from each group to solve. So this is a group and this is a group. Meaning I need 2 of these, any 2, because when it says your choice, you could have 2 daggers, you could have 2 shields, you could have a healing hand and a dagger. You just need 2. And then same thing with this group. You need 2 secondary character dice. Once you've placed those 4 dice on here, that resolves this door card. Now each round, there's a description of what effects happen either when you resolve the door, while you're trying to resolve the door. This is how it affects a party. In this case, each round the puzzle door is in play. So while it's in play these 3 rounds, deal 1 damage to both frontline characters. So if you don't resolve this on the first round, as it moves down, both frontline characters then take 1 point of damage. And that will continue until you either resolve it or it drops off the board. And I'll show you that. After 3 rounds, remove the door. So no matter what, this door is going to be resolved either by you or by itself. So how that works is doors, traps, puzzles, all those types of cards are always on the left-hand side. Monsters are on the right-hand side. This track, this 5 through 1, this is basically on the left-hand side, the rounds that you know to place the card. So in the case of the door, it goes against the 3, meaning you have 3 rounds to resolve this encounter. Every round, it drops 1. Okay? Until it's either resolved itself or you resolve it through your actions. Okay, so we start it here on 3. Same with how monsters work. You have 5 through 1. This is the level of the monster where it starts, and then this is the damage that it takes. As it's taking damage, it moves down. So I'll explain that when we have a monster encounter. But right now, if your if your dungeon tile has a door, we're only going to resolve the door at this time. So every turn will start the very beginning with either a door or straight into the room and dealing with the encounters. So we've got our door set up. The next thing is we're going to do our pre-action phase, the staging phase. And what that does is you're going to roll your dice, and you have 10 main character dice. These are the only dice that actually get rolled through a turn. Your secondary character dice, these are either created through character actions or rolled based on a wild card. So if you roll through the main character dice, one of these symbols, this is a wild card, that's the only time you will roll one of these secondary dice. Okay? So these dice are usually set off to the side once they've gone to the regroup, because these are the ones that every round, you'll either roll all or some, or maybe one. So we're going to start off our turn with rolling our main character dice. So we pull these out, and then we go to our staging. These are basically our staging actions. And what that means is, at the top of the game board, you have all the different types of action dice that each character can have. Wizard, fighter, cleric, thief. And you just take those symbols of the dice and place them directly onto that area. We have our 2 mace, 2 wizard caps, 2 hoods, and then you'll be left with a possible random monster or a wild card. So in this case we didn't roll any wild cards, but whenever you see this symbol for random monster encounters, place it directly on here. That's when you know you have your first of one of 4 dice that will set up for a random monster encounter. What that means is, once you've rolled 4 random monsters, these dice, you will draw a monster card, and that will be a random monster that you encounter. Then those get removed. But there's locked dice and unlocked dice. Every dice on the game board is locked except for random monster encounters. These are locked on the board, and once they're set there, they aren't removed until all 4 are placed and then a random monster encounter is done. Even when you get a camp dice, which are part of the secondary, those are unlocked. You can, if you had one here, say, wow, I need one, so I'm just going to reuse it for something else and place it in the regroup. Because your secondary character dice, these are finite. You only have 6. So as you're creating them or they're being used for cards, like on here, once you run out of these, if something calls for one of these dice and it's not there, you don't get that ability. So you want to be aware of where these dice are at and how they're being used, and if you want to use it for something else, then you'll have to take it off the board or the card to try and use it for something else. Okay, so we've made our first roll. We've staged our action dice. We have our first random monster encounter die. And once we've gone to the pre or the staging, we go into the action phase. What that means is, now you're going to start figuring out how your characters want to deal with the encounter. They have certain types of actions that they can do or create through abilities to accomplish a goal. And this goal is to get through or resolve this puzzle door. So we look at what we have. We have our 2 wizard caps, 3 swords, 2 maces, and our thief hoods, 2 thief hoods. So we look, what do we need to resolve this? And as quickly as possible. Again, we need 2 of any secondary dice, action dice, for that group, and 2 for this one. So we weren't able to roll any through a wild card, so we're going to have to create those through abilities. And the way we do that is we look at the abilities of each character. And when you see a card on their character cards, you look to see what their ability is to create secondary. In case of the fighter, if I have 2 swords, I can create a shield. That's a secondary character action dice. So that's how we would produce one of the actions. This goes for a cleric, where 2 mace can create a healing hand. A thief, 2 thief hoods can create a dagger, and 2 wizard caps can create a spellbook. Now I'll go into later about spellbooks, because they're used for also casting spells, which we have down here. And again, the wizard has to memorize a spell before they can cast them. In this case, we don't need any spells because we're just dealing with the door. And one of the things to remember about a door is, if you resolve the door within the time limit, you surprise whatever monsters are in that room, chamber, corridor. It doesn't matter. If you resolve this door within these 3 rounds, before it goes off to the bottom, then you have that element of surprise. You have attack initiative. If you don't, and for some reason the door comes down here, you don't resolve it, whatever creatures are inside that room, they have the attack initiative. And there's only one way to get that back, and that's through the attack initiative spell. So They don't have to roll, they just get attack initiative. Because you were doing something in the door and you clicked it, trap opened, whatever it was, there was some indication that they know something was on the other side. So that's the difference between resolving a door in time or not. You have attack initiative when you get into the room, which means if you get attack initiative, you can start your whole round again by a new roll if you want. If you don't resolve the door in time and the encounter monsters inside the room or whatever it is, you have to now resolve that round with whatever dice are available. There's no new rolls. It's just, so if you have one action dice left, you're going to go into this round with these monsters with one action dice. So it's very critical that you try and solve that door, because you get a nice fresh round of dice rolling, as opposed to it's like they surprised you and you're dealing with the encounter. So we know that we need to create dice, action dice, secondary action dice. So we're going to go through this systematically. We're going to take our 2 wizard caps. You just place it, because remember, Dungeon Hack is a dice placement game. It's a card management, dice rolling, dice placement game. So we place these directly on the character cards to create a secondary action, which gets produced there. Again, remember, these are finite. Secondary action dice are finite. And now I only have 5 left. So if everybody started creating these, they're going to run out, and pretty soon I won't have any more. And we need 4. So once a dice is created, we pull these off, put them in the regroup area. Now you can play this action. In this case, we'll just play it directly on the door card. We need 3 more. So we'll take 2 of the swords. And this is going to be great because we're going to actually be able to solve this door right off the bat. We got a really good roll. So we have 2 swords, we create a shield. Okay? So the fighter takes the swords, puts them in a regroup, and then we place this in that first group. So we've resolved this first group. We need 1 more group. We take the 2 mace, so right here, and we create a healing hand, right? Now healing hands can also be used for healing characters, but right now we just need it to resolve the door. So this gets put in the regroup, stick that on the card. Then we take our thief hoods and we create our last action dice, which is the dagger. These go in the regroup, place this on the card. So with a really good roll, we lucked out and we were able to solve and resolve this door on the very first turn. If, for some reason, at the end of this round, I hadn't created that 4th action die, that secondary action die, we would start a new round by this dropping. And remember, again, each round the puzzle doors in play deal 1 damage to both frontline characters. That means your frontline, these 2, would have taken a point of damage like that. And that would have happened every round that this was not resolved. But we got a really good roll, actually, we lucked out. So in this case, we have our 4, we've resolved this door, these get taken off, put in the regroup, this gets placed in the discard pile. And now, here's the cool thing. We actually, whether it was through the thief or however, the wizard, somebody got through the door silently and were able to surprise whatever's on the other side. So we resolve the door, we will now win initiative, no matter what, and that means the monsters do not get a chance to roll for initiative, and we can continue on with the round. But we get to roll all of our dice. If, in that case before, where it wasn't resolved, and let's say it dropped down, see how this is what's remaining? This is how we would deal with the encounter. We'd have to deal with any monsters or whatever it is with basically 1 action die. You can't roll. We are now going to get to roll all these dice. Not these. Remember, those don't get rolled unless wild, but all these will get to be rolled. And we can also take that off since it's unlocked. So let's go ahead. We resolve the door. So what we do now is we flip over the quarter room and we see what's inside. In this case, you have a number of icons or symbols that you'll see in a dungeon, on a dungeon tile. On this one there's monsters that are going to be in this room. So we have 2 monsters that we've encountered. you'll either have a 2 or a 1. There won't be 3 monsters in a room. So in this one we have 2 monsters, and then we have a chest that we will get treasure item once we resolve these 2 monsters. Okay, so we draw these cards, and now you place this back again where it was with the party marker on it. And you remember, we're still in turn 1 on round 1. Okay, because we were able to do everything in this one round, and we're still finishing up that round. So we've resolved the door. We know that we have 2 monsters, so we draw our 2 monsters. This one is a Kobold Archer, and it has a 1. And let me explain the monsters. Every monster has a certain amount of icons or different symbols that represent what it is and how it affects the game. So we always have, there'll be an image of whatever the monster is. There's always going to be a title or name of what type of monster it is. In this case, it's a Kobold Archer. Then on this left side, we have the description of what type of attacks, damage, and how those attacks or defenses affect the party. This right here, this upper left top number, this is important because this represents the level of the monster, which is a level 1, and where it's going to start on the track. This lower number, this is group, and there's 3 groups in the game. You have 1, 2, and 3. The 1 represents the first group that when you start out at level 1 in the beginning of the game, all the level 1 monsters are the only ones you're going to encounter in the beginning. Once you've cycled through all those monster cards, you will shuffle in 1 with 2 and 3 as one big monster deck. Now you start dealing with either lower level monsters or up to 5th level monsters. So in this case right now we're going to look at level 1. It goes on this track at 1. The second monster, and on this one there weren't any special abilities, and I'll explain damage and everything on this one. So our second monster is a Kobold Bowman. Now this guy's a little worse. He has a level 2, right? So this is a level 2 Kobold Bowman. Now remember I talked about these statistics, this information about what the monsters do. Right here is full attack. This is the damage that a monster does. In this case, it's a 1d3. Now 1d3 is, you roll a d6 dice, it's basically half. So if you roll a 1 or 2, that's 1 damage. If you roll 4 or 5, or 3 or 4, it's 2 damage, and if you roll 5 or 6, it causes 3 damage. So that's how you get the 1d3, half of a d6. It's level 2 experience. Now we have our special attacks and special defenses. In this case, the Bowman has a special attack. That is poison arrows. It can poison on a 5 or 6. So every time this monster attacks, you have to roll a d6 to see if that attack had a poison arrow. If you roll a 5 or 6, someone in the party, based on how many monsters are attacking at the time, will go through a random pick to see who's poisoned. And that would be one of these poison cards to see who's poisoned. Now remember, when creatures attack or monsters attack, if it's one monster, only the frontline characters are going to be attacked. That's the 2 guys in front. If there are 2 or more monsters, then you have everybody in the party that can be attacked. Because the monsters could be coming from the front, from the back, they could work their way on the side. Just remember, one monster, just the frontline characters attacked. Now that's different in a quarter, because if you have a quarter, tight quarters, monsters can attack you from the front or attack you from the back. So it would be a randomness if one or even one or more attacks, because now you're affecting the front or the back. But I'll explain that when we deal with a quarter dungeon tile. But in this case, that's this monster's special ability. You look at special defense, so special attack is a possible poison. Special defense, there is none. It'll say nil, that means he has no special defense. Level 2 goes right here on the level 2 track. And those are our 2 monsters. Now the last thing is a treasure. So we draw a treasure card, but treasures are never known until the very end, after you've resolved all the encounters for that room or that dungeon tile. So this, you don't see it, you just place it off to the side, and you can reveal it after you've dealt with all the encounters. So we've set up our dungeon tile, we have monsters and treasures. Now let's begin the next round. And that's only because you resolved the door. If we hadn't resolved the door, we would finish out round 1 for this part of the turn. But we resolved it, we get to start a fresh new round with a new roll. Meaning, if I can either leave this if I want, put it in the regroup, and re-roll all the dice, or just re-roll these 9. Remember, since we're still in the same turn, this random monster encounter die doesn't move. These dice only get removed at the end of the turn when everything's completed. Everything has been resolved. So, we won the door, we were able to resolve it. We're going to go through, it's going to be round 2. And if you wanted to, you could take a dice and keep track of, you know, down here what round you're on. It's not critical to know exactly what round it is, but it is a nice help to let you know. So we'll put that there. It's up to you. But we're gonna start a new round with a fresh roll, and I'm gonna take this, okay, and I'm going to roll all these dice. So I set them off to the side. Now it's going to be a little different. We have some wild cards. So let's go ahead and first place our random encounter, right? So now we have 2. If we get 2 more, we're going to be drawing a random encounter, a random monster encounter. Right now it's not too bad. Then we have our mace, our sword, our 2 wizard caps, and our hood. And these are your wild cards, which means we get to roll 3 of the secondary character dice. Remember, again, if you don't have 3, you can only roll what's available. So in this case, new round, we get to roll these. And this is what we rolled. We have 2 shields, and again, they go in the staging area for the fighter, and we have 1 dagger. So we're in our pre-action phase. This is our staging phase, getting ready for this round. So we're round 2, this is turn 1, and we can go ahead and start. Something to know about dealing with monsters. If you have, in this case, we resolve the door so they don't have a chance to try and roll for initiative. We automatically win initiative. But let's say you just were in the room, monsters attacked. If your characters can produce anything that causes a point of damage. In this case, when you look at the character cards, 2 swords can create a point of damage, 3 swords can create 2 points of damage. On here, 2 mace can create a point of damage. Same with the thief, 2 can create 1, 3 can create 2, and the wizard, if you have 3 caps, you can create a point of damage. That's damage against monsters. So whether it's spells or character abilities or magic items that can cause damage, if you can create a point of damage, the monsters always get a chance to roll for initiative. And the way that works is each character rolls a d6, and based on their level, if they roll their level or less, they win initiative. So in this case, if I was rolling for this Kobold Bowman and I rolled a 2, that monster would gain initiative, attack initiative, and you put a little red cube right there on its level. That tells you that this monster is going to fight before the party. If this one rolled a 1 or less, same thing, you'd have an attack action. These 2 would now get attack initiative, and they would get to roll for attack first. Okay, so that's attack initiative. If they rolled 3, 4, 5, no, they didn't win initiative. So that's for every level of the monster, and you always roll for highest level first. Okay. So now we have automatically 1 attack initiative. So we can start to fight. We have damage that we can cause. Our goal for this dungeon tile is get rid of the monsters before 1, we get any more random monsters, and before hopefully they can attack us. So we look at how we can cause damage, and that's through our action dice. Okay? Damage can be caused through actions, spells, or magic or non-magic items. We don't have those. We haven't learned to memorize any spells yet, which you might. We can do it this turn if we resolve these guys first. So let's look about how we can cause damage. So we know that 1 point of damage would get rid of this guy. Okay? 2 points of damage would get rid of this guy. So let's go with 1 point of damage first. And we also want to look at our spells to see what can we memorize and cast, possibly, that would also cause damage. You know, Shocking Grasp is one that can cause damage. Web and Sleep will incapacitate monsters, and then Attack Initiative, again, will create attack. We will win the Attack Initiative. So we'll look at damage or blocks. Now, one thing to remember is if you take any 3 character action dice from any of the 3 characters, any of the 4, it will produce the 4th character action damage. So in this case, a wizard cap, a mace, and a hood, if you look on here, will produce a fighter's point of damage. So we know that that would create a point of damage, right? But we want to look and see what is the best way to set that up. You can also use those same 3 to create an action die, which could also help. And then we look at this and we go, okay, so here's one of the things we could do. We have a dagger. 2 daggers will create 2 points of damage. So we could kill one of these monsters right off the bat by using a wizard cap, a sword, and a mace to create a thief hood. Now we would use one of the dice from it to create a thief hood. So let's say, for example, we use these 3, right? And we're going to create a thief hood. So we take one of those that are remaining, these would go in the regroup, we place it here. Now we have 2 hoods, and this is the action I'm going to take because I want to get rid of one of these, because he's the one that can do poison. So we've taken 3 of those action dice, we place those on our thief, and we create a thief hood. There's our second thief hood. Now we take these 2 thief hoods, place them on the thief card, and we create a dagger. Again, from the remaining secondary dice, which we only have 2 left. These get regrouped. This goes into the staging area. Whoops. And now we can take these actions back and create 2 damage. And then you just place it right on the card. It goes 1 damage, 2 damage, put it in regroup, and now this character or this monster has been destroyed. Once a monster has been destroyed, you want to figure out who gained the experience. Who gets the level progression for this one? Since the thief was the only one that did damage to this one, he's going to get the experience for killing this. So this gets discarded in the monsters, and the thief gets that experience. Goes down 1 track on the level. Okay? So now we got 1 more guy to deal with. Well, we don't have anything that can produce damage, but we do have secondary action dice that can block. So if we look on here for the fighter, block monster attack. Block an entire level 1 or level 2 monster attack once per round. Perfect. So we have these here, right? Those 2 shields. Just place those right on here. And this blocks any attack from this monster. It can basically roll. I mean, it doesn't roll for attack. It would attack, but basically the fighter was able to block that attack. And that means block attacks that had to do with poison or disease. So if it was the Kobold Bowman and the fighter blocked this, it wouldn't get a chance to even roll for poison. The whole attack was blocked. So we've been able to kill or destroy 1 monster, successfully block, because it's an automatic. Okay, there's no roll to see if this is a success. This is an automatic block. Because monsters, whenever it's the monster's turn, they automatically hit and they do damage. It just matters on how much damage they do. That's based on a roll. So we're going to complete this round, because I can't really do one thing with the wizard cap. I could, if I don't think I'm going to use this, throw it in the regroup, or just leave it there for the next round and hoping I get another one. So we'll go ahead, remove these, because once we've finished our turn, and there's nothing else I can do, we go to the monster or monster turn, and we go, okay, we have 1 monster left, he can attack. Well, it's being blocked, that monster attack is null and void. So, monster attack turn, this one's been blocked, so now we go to another round, right? Nothing else we can do. I'm going to leave this, okay? So we kind of do our cleanup for that round, which means anything I want to put in a regroup, I put it. Any of these secondary action dice, those get removed off and set to the side. These get left on the regroup. Let's go ahead and change this to 3. Again, these also get pulled off to the side because they do not get rolled unless you roll a wild card. Now we are in round 3 of turn 1. Okay, we're still in turn 1. What do we do first? Roll the dice. Okay, we take our main character dice, we roll them, hoping that we don't get 2. All right, so here's our results. Again, we take our mace, put it in staging. Good, we got another wizard's cap. We have a sword and a hood. And we have 2 wild cards. So what are we going to do? Just take any of these 2, and they're all exactly the same. All the dice that are rollable are exactly the same. Okay, so we're going to roll these 2. Oh, good. So the first one we have is a spell book that goes in this staging area. And now we got a campfire. Okay, so one of the dice we've rolled is a campfire for the secondary action dice. Now the way this works is whenever you roll a campfire, you place it into the campfire area. If you get 2 of these campfire dice, you'll be able to move this up the healing campfire rest track. And what that does is at the end of a turn, the characters, once they've resolved all the actions, they'll be able to rest this certain amount of points or heal up this amount of points spread out throughout the party. And it could be 1 per character, it could be all 4 to 1 character. It really depends on how you want to spread it out, but it's 4 points of healing or rest that can be placed on those characters and healed up to that many points. So that's how campfire works, is every time you get 2 of these, you get to move the rest camp up 1 track into a max of 12, and that's used at the end of the round. So right now, once we get 1 more, then we'll be able to move that track, and then they get removed off the regroup. But again, these are not locked, so if you run out of secondary dice, you can remove it, put it back in its pile, and it'll be able to be used again. So we have used our wildcard roll, we have our secondary. So now let's go ahead and start this round and deal with the last monster. Okay, so remember how I said we had obtained attack initiative by resolving the door. Well, now, since we can produce a point of damage, just these 2 mace alone can produce a point of damage, we have to roll for initiative to see if the monster could obtain initiative. We do that by taking a d6, these white ones are for the monster attacks, or resolving for attack initiative. We roll this. If we roll a 1 or less, that monster will obtain attack initiative. And of course, for this video, we roll a 1. So this monster actually gets attack initiative. And we do that by placing the red cube right here in the top left corner, right above or right on top of the level marker. Now this monster gets to attack first. The only way we're going to be able to remove that ability is if we had this card memorized. Okay? Now, if possible, okay, if you could do it, if you can memorize the spell, get it ready, and have the ability to cast that spell alone, you could take attack initiative away. But you have to have the right attack dice and a spell book and get ready to do it. Because memorization and casting can be very quick when it applies to this spell or the other spells. It's just the ability of the wizard. If they can memorize a spell, they can cast it right away. So let's look at what dice we have to see if that ability is possible for the wizard. Now we know that we have a spell book that we need to be placed on the character for the wizard to cast spells, period. Then we have to have the character abilities placed on this card to be able to memorize it, which if we look at this action dice requirement, we need a wizard cap and a dagger. That would allow us to memorize the spell. So we do have a wizard cap, but we would need another dagger, or just at least one dagger. And the only way to produce a dagger is having either rolled it, or the ability to change a face, which there's some magic items to do that, or use the thief and his ability to create a dagger. Now we have one hood. If we used a mace, a sword, and a wizard cap, we could produce another thief hood, place those on the thief, and create a dagger. Okay? Now that would give us one wizard cap and a dagger placed on here we haven't memorized, but we still got to make sure we have this spellbook on the character card, which we could do. So here's the big importance. Is it critical enough to go through this process to attack and kill this monster before it gets a chance to fight back? And that is definitely a yes, because this monster will produce 1 to 3 points of damage, +1. So if we can do that and take that initiative and then have the ability to cause damage and destroy it, great. But you only want to go through that whole process if you can get attack initiative and then actually attack and destroy the monster. If we look at how we have this ability, we know that we could do this. We could put the spell book here, right here, allowing for casting spells. We could use a wizard cap, a sword, and a mace to create a hood. 2 hoods to create a dagger. So now we have a dagger and 1 remaining wizard cap. We could place them on here. We'd be able to memorize this spell. Immediately, we'd be able to cast this spell because we have the spell book. And by casting it, we'd place it back down. That would remove the attack initiative. Great. But then, what do we have left as actions to actually kill this monster? We don't have anything. We have a mace. And 1 mace isn't going to do it. It's not going to cause damage. So we would go through this whole process and it wouldn't do us any good. So there's tactics you have to look at. It's like, yes, I could do that. There's an ability. Maybe we won't want to do that process and save for next time. But right now, we know that we have enough damage we could kill this by doing physical damage, a weapon damage, attack. So we're going to save that and kill this monster. He's going to have to attack first. So we'll go through and we'll roll the dice. Okay, we're just going to go through and this monster attack initiative first. Or sorry, they attack first. It already has the initiative. We know that a 1d3 is going to be the damage. So we roll, and we rolled a 4. Remember, 1d3 is 3 and 4 causes 2 points of damage, and then there's a +1 for a Kobold Archer. So 3 points of damage. Now, initially there were 2 monsters here. So this 3 points of damage is going to get spread out of all party members. And the way that works is you take the healthiest character first and then work your way around. Everybody's going to take at least a point of damage except for 1 character because there's only 3. So what we'll do is these 3 damage will take 1 off the fighter, 1 off the cleric, and 1 off the thief. The wizard's the weakest character. So in this case, since there was only 3, we can have it so the wizard didn't get it. If there were 4, they'd all take damage. And if there were 5, you'd go through all 4 and go back up, and then the fighter would take another point of damage. So you kind of cycle through all the characters when you're spreading out that damage. You can't just go, well, he did 3 points of damage, I'm going to give it all to the fighter. You can't do that. It has to be spread out to all characters. So he's done his damage, right? We look and see, were there any special attacks or special defenses? Nil, nil. So all he does is do damage. So he has done his attacks. Okay? Leave that there because you don't want to be confused that you'll make an attack and he'll get to attack again. Remember, the red cube shows that he gets to do attack initiative. So now it's our turn to cause damage. So we know, boom, multiples of these can cause a point of damage. These 2 mace can cause a point of damage. 3 of the wizard caps can cause damage. 2 hoods can cause damage. But we need to decide what's most important for us to either have remaining actions to try and memorize spells, to be able to cast spells for the next turn. But we can't leave dice on the game board or characters for the next turn. Okay? The only dice that you can leave on here for the next turn are dice for memorization. Okay? So let's look and see what we can get. We want to do a point of damage for him first and get rid of him. And then we want to look, see what we have left, go, hey, what spells are good for us to use and memorize for the next turn? Let's see, so Wizard, or Shocking Grasp, this would be a good one. That does damage, up to 3 points. So let's do this. We're going to save these 2 mace for a Healing Hand, and we're going to use 1, 2, 3. Remember? One of each character, 3 of them will cause a point of damage for the cleric. But since everybody in the party is kind of contributing, you're going to decide who's going to get this experience. So let's do these 3, right? These go on here, right? But 3 created by a mace. So the cleric is doing the damage. That's 1 point. This destroys this monster. Now, even though the cleric was the one that produced the damage, you can decide who's going to do it. And I think on this one, we're going to have the wizard take that experience, because you can pick out of any of those 4. And only in that case, when it's something where 3 different, and then the 4th created the actual point. Okay? So that destroys a monster. Now, let's try and use the remaining to actually memorize a spell. So here, we're going to take these 2 mace and create a Healing Hand, like that. And now for a Shocking Grasp, to memorize the spell, you need a Wizard Cap and a Healing Hand. Then you can memorize Shocking Grasp. So what we'll do is we take the Healing Hand, place it right on top of the spell card. We take our Wizard Cap, put it on the spell card. Now, are those what's required? Yes. So this fulfills the requirement of memorizing the spell. Now we have this and we get to put it in our hand. It can be used now anytime, as long as this last spell book placed right there, right? Now, I don't want to do this now because right now I've resolved the turn. And if I do that and leave it here, it's going to go, okay? So, this is what I want to do, since it's not locked. I'm going to take this secondary character, and I'm going to place it on one of my spell cards. Because remember, you can leave a secondary action dice on a spell as if you're trying to memorize it. And this is the best place to hold a dice if you're going to be going to the next turn. So it's kind of a holding, and these aren't locked, so it can be moved somewhere else later. It's an active dice, and it can be carried from turn to turn to turn. Dice that are in staging areas or on character abilities, camp, monster, they have to be removed at the end of the turn. Okay, so remember that. Anything in regroup is removed. Anything that's on your character cards or your player board has to be removed. But anything that you have on spell cards in the process of trying to memorize, those can be used later because they are not locked, right? So we'll kind of use it as a holding for possibility of, I might want to memorize this spell, this sleep spell, or I think I'll use it for casting a spell instead, and then forgo that memorization ability. All right, so we've used our action dice. We have finished this turn. We've accomplished all the encounters. We've resolved everything. We didn't get a monster encounter, so we're good there. We didn't save enough of the rest to actually get any healing rest. And we finished, that was round 3. So let's go ahead and do our cleanup of that phase for the turn. It's kind of the end of getting everything resolved and cleaned up from the game board at the end of the turn. So we can get rid of our monster, we can get rid of our camp. If there were anything in this area, we'd get rid of those, put in regrouping. Remember, secondary character dice don't get rolled except for wild cards, so we put these off to the side. All these, we can take these off, get them ready to roll for the next turn. Clear that. And now we have just spell cards, our token on our dungeon tile, and the health of where our characters are now. This is the actual resolution of a full game turn. This is a turn 1 that we resolved. And now, the very last part is, let's see what our treasure is. So we take our treasure card, flip it over. On this one, we earned 75 gold. Now gold is what can be used when you get to the bazaar. So whenever you get to the portal will take you to the bazaar. You can use this gold pieces, to actually buy potions and scrolls, things that will help you later on in the dungeon. So we're going to set this off to the side. That's our treasure that we obtained. And now we're done with this turn. We would actually go into the next turn, turn 2, by drawing another dungeon tile and doing the same thing again with whatever encounter we are going to find. So the next video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a video on turn 2 based on a tile that has an event. So you can get that information. It'll show you how to resolve an event, which are events, event cards, different things that can happen. So that way I want to give you some experience of how to deal with an event during a dungeon tile, right? So we have our memorize spell. This goes in our hand. We can use that anytime. And we'll be looking for turn 2, which you'll see in the next video. And that will be going to a junction right. So we'll see what we find there, right? So thanks for watching this first initial playthrough of turn 1. I hope it was informative. If you have any comments, please leave them in the comment section. Any questions? If they're involved questions, you can go ahead and PM me and I'll put it in the FAQ forum for Dungeon Hack. But thanks for watching.